This week on RSBANDB Update, Cave Horrors get a graphical update, and Unspeakable Horrors arrive, but there's something else on an island that draws our attention. Also, thoughts on war bonds and the latest major security vulnerability from AMD. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 662, recorded Friday, March 16th, 2018, Tutorial Island. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tanis and myself are back this week.
Hey.
So, this week's RuneScape update, at the very start appeared to be a rather innocuous update. The Horrors, Shadow Sale, Game Blast highlights. But we do have some other things, some things that have actually dwarfed this update that we'll get to in just a little bit. We can't go wrong with the graphical update of the Cave Horrors, right?
Oh, of course not. And, we can't have all of the updates just for the upper crust and upper echelon of RuneScape society now, right? We must share in the bounty of the updates, and I think that happened this week. And, and some of the, let's say, harder to find updates might even surpass the main headliners.
Exactly. So Cave Horrors and whatnot did receive a graphical update because the quest for the finale of the Pirate series, Pieces of Hate, is coming out soon. And, I think, compared to what they looked like before, if you go down to the cave and look at the Cave Horrors and whatnot, they look great. They're not, they're not totally extravagant, but they do fulfill the need of what a modern creature on RuneScape should look like, I think. I don't really have much else to say on how the Cave Horrors look, except that they do fulfill their exact purpose of, being a modern 2018 RuneScape Slayer creature. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. There's nothing that makes them really stand out and really special, but they look good. And I think, decent job with the graphics and all that. And it just brought it up to the level that we're used to everywhere else in the game world. Yeah.
Now, these are level 58 Slayer. Have always been level 58 Slayer. And in addition to the graphical update, they did, buff the drop tables a little bit. For example, these drop poison ivy berries now noted. All the herbs that they drop are noted. They still drop their mahogany and teak logs, as well as swordfish. So, these are actually, in my view, a very good Slayer creature for someone who is, just leveling up Slayer and is in the mid-levels. Because, you're going to need these herbs, you're going to need these logs, and, swordfish, that's an okay fish to eat. It's not like shark or monkfish, but swordfish, I think, is an okay thing to drop.
Well, and at these levels, it totally fits, and this is yet another good update for people that are still coming up on the Iron Man ladder. This gives you another fish you can get like that while getting some herbs and some other things. And we know these things are going to be taken out of the drop table over time, but as for right now, I think it works real well. And even for a higher level player, it's not really bad money. Well, I guess we'll talk about the other horrors, or I guess those are the better money, but
Unspeakable.
The Unspeakable Horrors, that's right. Yeah. I didn't want to say it, because it's
unspeakable.
Horror that shall not be named. So that's right. But and they still drop the black mask, right?
And that's going for around 1 million GP on the GE. For its value. So, if you can find someone to buy it, that's, a really good drop for something that's level 58 Slayer.
Yeah. So I don't want us to completely overlook the update, because I think it is
definitely
great for people that are in those levels to where this is useful. You know what I mean? Like, because I think this is useful. And I think they did. I mean, it's good enough. You know what I mean? I mean, this is not something that stands out to us, but maybe if I had
it stands out to me.
Well, see, if I had an account that was like at that level, then I think
you'd be all over it.
Yeah, I'd be all over it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And they included a prophecy in the news update. When the skin of a horror is changed, its drop tables too are exchanged. And when fell things stir in the deep, unspeakable horrors start to creep. So basically what this means is that if the cave horror changes color, its drop table will slightly change as well. And, of course, in the deep refers to where the unspeakable horrors start to creep.
Mm-hmm.
I like this level. I like this level of immersion for this, because I think I think it's a good thing for them to do. It, just is better than saying, hey, cave horrors have been graphically updated. Unspeakable horrors are now in-game. So that's
yeah, cool. I think it's well, and we had asked for, I know at least we did. I don't know if everyone is on the same page, but we wanted a little bit of this with the content that would be released in the future. So like every time they release something, we want a little bit of like lore related, story related stuff with it. So even though that's kind of like a
we did talk about that on the survey. On the survey.
So this kind of like a little taste of that maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean they are very focused towards herbs, their drops. So it's something that is an option for lower level Iron Men who look to be potentially training the farming skill, perhaps, in the amount of seeds they drop here. So, and I mean, of course, they're not going to surpass something like Aberrant Spectres, but still, I mean, they're there, right?
Well, and and especially it gives you something to be getting while you're there anyway, trying to get your Black Mask, so you can continue on in your Slayer, career, I guess.
Yeah. And there are also, of course, the elite ones that can drop better drop table items, just like many other Slayer creatures back when elite monsters were added. So, I mean, this is a full mid-level Slayer experience, I think. So, overall, pretty good. Pretty good. So, I don't know if I have anything else left to say on the cave horrors. We can move on to the unspeakable horrors now, if that's good for you.
Yeah, that's good for me.
Okay. So, unspeakable horrors are, of course, the new part of this update, and they are said that you might want around level 80 combat to take these out. I think that's what they said. Let me just look this up here. Around combat level 80 to take these out. Unspeakable horrors on their own are combat level 105, 13,000 life points, and weak to air magic if you want to do that. Oddly, that entire dungeon down there, they were aggressive to me. I don't know why. Normally, things like that aren't aggressive. They are level 105, though the cave horrors were also aggressive to me. I don't know why that would be.
Oh, I know. Well, no, I don't. Never mind. I thought I did. I was wondering if you had the Witchwood icon on.
Yeah, I did.
Huh.
I did.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're just aggressive now. I didn't see that in any patch notes, though. But
yeah. I mean, because if you think about it, these things might actually be good to kill, the unspeakable horrors, because you don't need an aggression potion. You just basically go to the center of the room, and there you are.
Yeah, although I don't know if I'd want a bunch of them on me at the same time.
I took 3 successfully, and my combat ability is not great.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, especially if you're maging, there are places where you can neglect, take minimal amount of damage.
Yeah, but magic is what you would want to use because they are weak to air, of course. So
right. And I've seen a lot of people using, not necessarily the cannon, but the the invention version.
Yeah,
What they call
I
that.
forget the exact name of it, but
It's like the cyclone or
basically the little electrocution machine.
Yes. Yeah. I've seen them being used a lot down there.
Yeah. And I mean, these things have great animations as well, and they got these glowing red eyes. It's really quite ominous if you get down and look into the eyes of one of them as you're doing. And I think that aside from the actual dungeon itself, because the dungeon itself was not graphically updated, it is clearly a mid 2000s era RuneScape map. It's not graphically updated in the sense that, for example, the Tazar City dungeon is, or the Brimhaven Slayer dungeon with the metal dragons in it. It doesn't look like that. It looks like, the old Fremennik Slayer dungeon, and I think that's fine at this point, because as we heard during the Q&A, they didn't have the budget to go for the full graphical rework of Mosla Harmless. But nonetheless, you do have these cave horrors.
Yeah, I mean that's too bad. But we've talked about that before about you have to draw those lines and you have to decide what you only have so much resources, and it sounds like the graphical reworks really eat up a lot of them.
Oh yeah, they would. Yeah.
So I mean, I get it. We're not in. I mean, when it's all said and done, you're not in that level band for a long time, and you're not in Mosla Harmless for a very long time. So, I mean, as much as I'd love the dungeon to look more current, I'm willing to kind of go along with those decisions, because I don't see what else they could have done. I mean, I don't want to if I had a better idea, I'd be the first to say it, but I don't really have a better idea. I don't know what they could have done differently to kind of thread that needle,
Yeah, definitely. And let's not forget, the main reason that the Unspeakable Horrors are here is to drop the new ability codex called Scare Tactics. And the point behind this is that they provide 4 new combat abilities for magic and ranged, and these are to mirror the effect of kick and stomp for the melee ability set, which I think is good. And we talked about this in the past, that you definitely do want to have a full suite of combat abilities, and you want synergy between them, and we didn't have that for a long time, and I feel like it's starting to finally fill out with that, with the abilities from Shattered Worlds, and now this one that helps quite a bit. So the new combat abilities are Shock and Horror for magic, which are at level 3 and level 15. Of course, Shock and Horror, that's what everyone likes to bring down upon their opponents. And for ranged, you have Demoralize and Rout. And these started on the Grand Exchange for the book selling for 50,000 GP. But I just did a quick little sample on the day after release, and it was selling for more than 100K. So, once again, another great reason for people to go down there and kill these level 58 Slayer creatures to figure out, what they're up to, and ultimately get some of these abilities. And provide them for free to play as well.
Well, right, and were you surprised to find that you only needed 1 codex for all the abilities?
I was, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I'm not either. I'm not sure that was the right thing necessarily to do. And I am in favor of adding more abilities to, like you said, to have more synergy within the styles. That being said, I'm kind of torn, because I know that these are low-level basic abilities. They're meant for, it's for free-to-play, and I get all that. At the same time, I don't see myself using them a lot. I mean, I guess you could use them in very specific cases, and they are adrenaline builders, so that's good. But if you have an established rotation and stuff, to take one of your pre-existing abilities out and put one of these in, boy, I don't see a case for that.
And I mean, these are at the core of it a stun. They're not something that's going to boost your damage by huge amounts.
Right, and I guess if I used kick and stomp, then I would feel different. But I don't use those either.
Yeah, because they're stuns, and half the things we fight at high levels are invulnerable to that.
Yeah, well, and in range, you're using what's it, the binding shot, and I think those shares a cooldown with some of the other stuns. So I don't know if I want to. I don't know. They are, but like I said, they're good for free to play, and I mean, they have a place. I just don't know if their place is in my bar.
Right, and I mean, the reason you're saying this is because all of these abilities, like kick, shock, and demoralize, the three of them, the basic ones, are in effect adrenaline boosters, because at their most, they're only going to do 100% ability damage. They're not boosting ability damage.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I know we're looking at this from the high level end of the perspective, and I think we should be 100% clear on that. And the way these are going to come in as useful is that this is going to be a moneymaker for people who are fighting these, and they're going to flood the market with them, and people who are interested in doing free-to-play combat, or maybe even just combat leveling up, are going to look at these and purchase these and be able to, stun some of their opponents and just use that as an ability to kind of maybe slow the pace of combat down and use what I want to call the tactical nature of EOC.
Yeah, and it's good to, especially in them early levels. Sometimes you don't have, or at least it feels like you don't have enough abilities early on to build your adrenaline as fast as you want to. So it will be good in those respects as well.
Yeah.
But and I try to remind myself that I am looking at it from a combat max situation, but I don't know. I think they're really good to build adrenaline if you still have a hole somewhere where you need to do that. Or if you need more basics, this is for you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of summing it up. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, is someone who is new, who is free to play, going to know about purchasing these? Are they going to have the 100-odd K that it's going to cost to purchase these for the foreseeable future? I don't know. So, and I mean, that's a question going forward as well, right? I mean, How does someone discover that, shock, horror, demoralize, and rout all exist?
Especially if it's in an area that they can't get to or participate in.
And I think at this point we're into talking about the inadequacies or problems with EOC.
Do we have to?
Because aside from that little right-click setup action bar, how are you to know, unless you go through the Combat Academy or look on a third-party source, how EOC works or what's all available? How is a free-to-player supposed to know that these exist aside from reading the news post?
I think there would be a place surrounded by water, big ocean water, where they could maybe teach you things.
Maybe
like that.
Maybe. Yeah, I think I know where you're going, but we'll have to talk about that later after the show, perhaps. Right. But all right, one more little thing with this for those of you guys out there who are getting ready for Pieces of Hate, and you guys like us here because we want to talk about what's great with RuneScape and whatnot. And I know many people who are involved in the lore side of things like completing everything. Well, this week there's 5 new lore books that have been added with this.
Mm-hmm.
Around
So if you've
Moss
lost your Quest Cape, now you know why.
Master Quest Cape.
Master Quest Cape. Yeah, Master Quest Cape.
Yeah.
You won't lose the other one till next week.
That's right. So one of them comes from the Unspeakable Horrors, which is a fairly common drop. I've heard it appearing within the range of 15 to 20 minutes of fighting them. So that's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
One comes from a bush on the northwest end of Mos Harmless. One comes by completing tasks from the pirate on the eastern side of Mos Harmless. One comes from the skeletal horde. That's the horde that you can fight weekly, and has a chance of dropping an elite clue scroll, which is after the Rag and Bone Man. And the final one is found in a mound northeast of the wheat field on Mos Harmless, but only after the previous 4 have been found. So if you're wondering about Master Questcape and lore, there's another reason for high-level people to go fight these.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
And in case you're wondering, I never heard about that. Well, we actually brought that news to you guys early this week on the Weekly Byte. If you want to find that, that's at youtube.com/RSBANDB. Look up the Weekly Byte there. That comes out every Monday, and you get all kinds of little tidbits like that about these lore books and something else that we're going to talk about in just a little bit here on the podcast.
Well, that's right. When it comes to RS News, we are the first responders. except
for weeks where it pains us to do so, but we haven't had one of those yet.
We got a job to do. We do it.
All right. So before we move on to the patch notes, I just wanted to highlight something else that Jagex wrote on their update here. They provided a highlight video of Game Blast, and they raised over £100,000 for special effect on Game Blast, and there were 340,000 people to tune in to the live stream on Twitch. So I think the entire community can give themselves a pat on the back by, £100,000 donated towards that great charity.
Yeah, good job, everybody. And I just, I've said this for a long time, ever since I started coming on this show, but it's something that I think makes us different and special and, unique in the gaming world is the way that this community can come together and really support worthwhile charities and stuff like that. So nice job, everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, you might think, £100,000, but if you're living in, the U.S., you might be wondering, what is £100,000? Well, £100,000 is actually $138,534 US dollars today. So
it's huge. And
it is huge.
When you know, like, whether you know somebody or personally yourself, the difference that even £500 can make with being able to get a certain piece of equipment that can help you, it's life-changing. It's just, you can't describe it.
Totally. So, as I said, everyone in this community can afford to give themselves a pat on the back, and I think it was a great thing for them to finally go back to supporting special effect and doing Game Blast in February with that double XP weekend. So very, very nice.
Yep.
Also this week, if you pay attention to Jagex's social feeds, you can watch for some new URLs that they have popped up. They are doing this in an effort to reduce phishing attempts. So if you follow Jagex on social media, you can look for links in the format of rs.game, osrs.game, and jgx.game. And these will be, verified URL shorteners for Jagex.
That's good to know.
I'm not entirely sure about why they're doing this, because, if you're on Twitter, you can mouse over the URL and it will show you what the full URL is. And I get it's just convenience feature. I have never been a fan of URL shorteners. I will just say that, and that's why I'm saying this right now. But I guess from a top glance point of view, if you just see rs.game, that's a verified URL. We can click that safely.
And maybe, like, are people still falling for the whole become a PMod thing and going to, you know what I mean? Like, stuff like, so, I mean, maybe that could be part, like, it just gives people a way to know for sure. And I think that's good. I mean, because, you know, we live in the era of fake news and alternative facts. So you never know who you're clicking on. So this is good.
Yeah, facts don't matter anymore.
No, they do not.
No. So rs.game, osrs.game, and jgx.game. All right. So moving on to the patch notes right now. So
we got quite the list of these.
Yeah, and most of these are pertaining to deep sea fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rotomatic spot animations no longer appear while fishing for sailfish. This makes sailfish, the swift sailfish spots distinguishable. I think Jagex means undistinguishable. I think the word to use there is undistinguishable, but we're not going to correct their grammar any more than I already just have. I didn't actually notice this.
Swift. Well, because you should be able to see that the Swift spot is different than the other spots, and you can't see anything when people are using automatics. So that's what I'm guessing. So,
you know, that's
because you want to look at the fishing spot, you know, so you know whether you're doing the Swift or you're doing the regular.
And that's interesting because I was there yesterday and I still saw Rotomatic animation there.
Oh, Shane discovered a bug then. Or it didn't work or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, maybe I was just paying attention wrong, but I swear I saw the Rotomatic whirlpool there. So,
well, that wouldn't be good.
No. The Fury Shark animations no longer play when fishing for jellyfish and sailfish.
Okay.
The whirlpool at the Deep Sea Fishing Hub now tracks title progress correctly, and yeah, that's a fairly big thing when people are throwing billions of GP in there.
Oh wow!
Ay.
Money down the drain, literally.
Oh, maybe it was messed up because I was using the Deep Sea animation override, so maybe there was something interacting with my animation I had set up that was making that play for me. I don't know. I'll have to go back and have another look at that. I just realized that. A bang option has been added to the ladders near NPC Greg Groggy Herring in the Deep Sea Fishing Hub so players can interact with him in Java. And of course, he is the guy standing all the way up on the mast there. So in case you're not able to see him, in case you're running the RuneScape client of old, well, you can turn your things into them now. And I think this is one of the first times we have had an area that was designed for NXT, but had to have a fix brought in so that it would work with the older Java client.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm sure that they'd wish they didn't have to do that, but because there's achievement associated with handing a ring to him, they didn't have much of a choice.
That's right. And I mean, it's just crazy to think that there are things that we can see at NXT that don't render in Java nowadays.
Isn't that crazy? That's kind of a crazy thought.
Yeah. The fishing icon has been added to all the mouse over spots in the fishing area in the Deep Sea Fishing Hub. So basically this means that if you are using the custom mouse cursors, you will now see fishing icons. I don't use custom mouse cursors. I don't know about you.
I do, yeah.
Okay. The anti-griefing area has been mapped down at Deep Sea Fishing Hub so that cannons and smaller items can no longer be placed. That's much appreciated, and
I always love it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't nearly as bad as people bringing cannons to the Crystal Skill Champas.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but I'd still rather don't have them. Don't need them.
Yeah, and also the pets too, like those big dragon things.
I know. I love my dragon though. Be polite with your dragon, PSA.
The streak timer during Frenzy Fishing now refreshes when clicking the spot rather than after successfully flinging a fish. Now, this is good because previously, if you were here and you were doing Fishing Frenzy, you would basically every time you would need to wait to fling your fish in. And if you, for some reason, clicked and you moved over to the next spot before you flung a fish, you risked resetting your streak prematurely. So,
you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And now I know why my streak was so low. I couldn't figure that out. I'm like, why? I know I'm clicking it in time. And it was this, okay, so premature streak in there. That's the problem. Don't want that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a night and day difference here because, you know that when you click that spot, you're going to get that fish within 6.7 seconds or however long it is. So you can just click, get the fish, move on to the next one. And you don't need to worry about ensuring that you click, immediately after your fish comes in because, I mean, I can't count the number of streaks I lost in the first week due to this. So I'm glad this change has been made.
Yep, very good.
And I'm going to say this again with this, now that this has been patched, it was before, but this just furthers that this is the place to train those invention rods up. And prawn bells are also now obtainable through all these fishing activities. So if you ever need prawn balls or fishing eggs, Fishing Frenzy is the one to do because I think within 3 or 4 minutes I had 4 prawn balls. Nice.
Yeah, I saved them up, and I have quite the stack of Baron Shark from all those. So it's nice.
So I mean, it's definitely something that can be leveraged if you're completing your aquarium now, and also with this, just a reinforcement of how good this is for that invention training.
Mm-hmm. And if you follow Shane, you can also even prestige your aquarium. Have you prestiged your aquarium?
No,
Shane?
I am not prestiging my aquarium.
What?
No. I mean, maybe, by the time if I get all the golden fish eggs that I have, then perhaps that might be an option because then you just identify them. I think I have, a stack of about 7 or 8 of them in my bank that are just sitting there.
Okay. So when you get a whole nother set, you can prestige it.
That was my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The message in a bottle item now gives the players the choice of what boost they want rather than applying one at random. And that's good, I think, because that brings the message in the bottle down to similar like the boost that we got from the Guardian of the Vault last week. So that doesn't make it as overpowered, I think. So that's good.
Yeah.
Blue blubber jellyfish now heal for 750 per eat, not 1,000. We talked about this in last week's podcast about why this is a necessary fix.
We did.
I don't think there's much else to reiterate here on this, but if you guys didn't listen to last week's, the reason why this fix was necessary is because at 1,000 per eat, you can now effectively heal past sailfish soup without an adrenaline loss. Whereas only 750 per eat now, that takes you down to 2250, which is below Rocktail. So now you have a choice. Do I want a bigger heal, or do I want to be able to spam this and heal up and not lose the adrenaline? So now there's a bigger choice to be made. And I think one of the key hallmarks that we need to underscore with MMO design is that anytime the player has a myriad of choices that are all good, that is something, that is a signal, one signal, not the only signal, of something that is designed well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. For sure.
So that's why this nerf was necessary. Prawn balls are now obtainable. We mentioned that. Sailfish now work with calorie bombs, which of course is another way to combine lots of fish into one eat item, let's just say. So hard to believe that was missed on the first go around, I think. So.
Yeah.
Now, here's something the efficiency experts are going to be very proud of. Sign of the Porters now work with the deep sea fishing spots.
Woohoo!
I wonder how they felt for that entire week when they didn't work.
I don't know because mine never didn't work, but I did the swarm the whole time.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're saying it
So-
worked with the swarm?
It worked for me. I never had a problem at all. So, yeah, go figure.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense because the swarm is not a conventional fishing spot, right? So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah. So these teleport collected items to bank. You make them with invention, and I mean, I guess that's another reason you could go thieve. Who is it that's north of Ithel? Oh, I forgot their name.
Amclad.
Amlad, right?
Amlad. Yep.
Yeah, I always skip them when I'm thieving because those signs of the porter, they just stack up so much in the inventory. It's annoying to run between banks, so I always just skip that one clan.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think it's for the highest sign of the porter. It's really not that much. I think you're going to use some incandescent and diamond necklace, so they're not. It's not too expensive for the amount of running around it saves you.
Yeah. The oh god, I almost read this as the pickle picking code, but it's the puzzle
pickle picking code. Is that the secret word?
The puzzle picking code for elite clues has been updated to make puzzle boxes rarer and Celtic knots more common to be closer to the old chances. The distribution will be closer to 50-50 now. The chance of a wizard has not been changed, and these are elite clues only, I must add.
Okay.
I'm going to say that I'm going to lodge a complaint right now, and I'm going to say that I don't like the puzzle boxes as much as I used to, because the pictures on them are all now high resolution and there's so much more detail to them. They're actually harder to match than the old low resolution pictures, believe it or not. At least that's the way I feel.
Oh, I believe it. And is that supposed to be part of the difficulty, or
I think it's just supposed to be that much more grand.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, there's fewer of them now.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's more knots.
Using an augmentation dissolver on an augmented limitless staff or elite Robin Hood gear now correctly retains the item's upgraded state and just removes the augmentation.
Oh no, it removed the... Oops. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and considering this is a new treasure trail item, oops.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to some quality of life changes for the Rum Deal and Cabin Fever quest, because these are, of course, in the Pirate series, and we'll be getting Pieces of Hate very soon. So for Rum Deal, a skybox has been added to Brain Death Island. Makes sense, because there's also a divination colony there. A bit of fence has been removed from the side of the factory so that players don't need to run around the whole building. Oh, God. Do you remember doing that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
The hopper and stagnant water pool are now left-click friendly.
That's nice, Joe.
The OP has been removed from damaged farming patches. Sadly, I don't remember what this is referring to in that quest.
Yeah, I don't either.
The NPCs and zombies outside the factory now appear when you're on the first floor, when they wouldn't before. I'm guessing this was an NXT-type graphical issue. And the quest conclusion now provides reward lamps instead of flat XP. So this is with the whole reward lamp change that we had been made a while back. So
okay,
that's good. Rum Deal. Now for Cabin Fever, both cutscenes are now updated and skippable. Rogue wooden floor textures were removed from the map edges during the ship battle scene, and there's now a skybox and an extended sea map. And, I mean, you need to do this when you're talking about NXT cool. because you're extending out that far. So
yeah.
Pirate NPCs are now aggressive on the enemy ship. The custom interfaces within the repair and weapon boxes have been updated and now gives players exactly the items they need when clicked. Planks from the repair box are now stackable, and the quest conclusion now provides reward lamps instead of flat XP.
Okay. some decent fixes. And
Yeah,
I wonder if this means we're going to have some ship-to-ship combat. Maybe some boarding of pirate ships.
I don't know. That would be certainly interesting if that did happen. And they were reusing assets from Rum Deal and Cabin Fever, perhaps. So that might be neat. A new left-click flow has been added to the gunpowder explosion when operating or repairing the cannon in that quest as well. The plunder mechanic has been changed as such. The barrel and box have been removed. Players are now given a single lot of 5 plunder from the chest. Players no longer need to wait for the chest to respawn. The chat and quest logs have been updated accordingly. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The Globetrotter achievement now correctly unlocks after purchasing the full Globetrotter outfit. Oh, good.
Ooh.
Because,
well, that didn't unlock, huh?
Because, I mean, you spend so much on the Globetrotter outfit. It would be a shame if you couldn't unlock it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Orlando Smith's hat broadcast is now global. That's that very rare treasure hunter item that only a handful of people have got. Animations were optimized for multi-core processors. Players should no longer hear audio dropouts or crackling when playing on a single-core machine or when the CPU is under high load from another program.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, except they
have single-core machines. Like, is that a thing?
I guess in some old laptops, perhaps.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. This did appear to add a new issue to the Mac, where there were cases where it wasn't extraordinarily high load and the CPU, or rather the sounds, were distorted. So I need to look into that a little bit further. So hopefully that gets fixed. But anyways, an issue was fixed with flickering and disappearing particles on old or low-end AMD graphics cards. And there's the patch notes for the week.
So, yeah, quite the collection.
Yeah, and, very consequential. Good for deep sea fishing, good for those 2 quests, I think. That's where the bulk majority of it hovered around. So, you ready to talk about something that wasn't mentioned in the patch notes or the news post, but has the potential to change the way we look at the game and change the way we start the early game experience?
Maybe something surrounded by water?
Something that can teach
water?
People about something?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as it turns out, Tutorial Island is back as an A/B
Woo!
test. So basically what this means is that if you're making a new RuneScape account, you are going to have a chance to experience Tutorial Island. And the idea behind A/B testing is that you have 2 different ways of completing something. In this case, it's the early teaching experience for RuneScape. And the 2 ways are, of course, Tutorial Island and the existing Ashdale method. Now, the idea behind an A/B test is you don't know, presumably, that you're being A/B tested, and it's going to be completely random which you get. So, I heard about this, and I made an account, and on the first go, I actually got Tutorial Island.
So cool. Did it bring back fond memories?
Yes, it did, and it's not just the old Tutorial Island with, modern, trees and whatnot. There are actual ground textures and whatnot, like you see in the graphically reworked areas of Taverley and Catherby. And its process is remarkably similar to how it used to be in terms of who you talk to, what you do. You start off learning how to open a door. Then you follow and you go chop some logs to start a fire. And then you go fish some shrimp, you burn the shrimp, and so on and so forth. So it's very much like the old Tutorial Island. Now, you might be wondering, why now? Well, we have something coming out later this year called RuneScape Mobile. And I think what Jagex needs is they need to have a way of teaching people how to play the game that has the least friction as possible. And I don't know. I am probably biased in saying this, but Tutorial Island feels like a much more natural progression than Ashdale.
You know, I'm sure I'm biased, but I don't think that bias actually affects an objective opinion here that Tutorial Island was much simpler to understand. It's much simpler to get started. And this is, you know, this is coming from someone that has done multiple accounts throughout the years using, you know, Tutorial Island, Ashdale. There was that time when it was Birthrip for a while. I've done all of those things, and Tutorial Island is the most concise, the easiest, and what it does better than any other style is it grabs you and it pulls you into RuneScape. This is how we do things. And that, I think, was a really smart decision for them to go back and reevaluate that when looking at what could be a new player base that wants to come in and they want it simple. Because you're going to be on a mobile. It needs to be simple, it needs to be concise, and it needs to pull you in.
Ashdale was more exploratory, I feel.
Very much. Very, very much.
Whereas these, there's a set path. You cannot deviate from the path. You need to complete obstacles to move forward in this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you would think that, oh, let's just, you know, throw together the old Tutorial Island and whatnot, and might have an experience based on that. But this is completely 100% redone. They have even put a forge next to the smithing anvils because, as we all know, with the mining and smithing rework, that's going to be something that's needed. So I think that they're on the right track with this. I never liked the idea of removing Tutorial Island in the first place.
You know, I didn't either, but when it happened, you know, I kind of, you know, it's kind of one of those go with the flow type of things because I didn't really see myself ever having another account or anything, and you know, but I almost feel like Ashdale came at a time when the whole exploratory thing it worked because I feel like a lot of people that were going back through it, they had already had main accounts and they were either starting via Iron Man or I remember, just having a second account. I did it just because I wanted to have a couple of them go on double XP weekend, and I wanted an untrimmed construction cape. So for whatever reason, you were an existing player though, so the exploratory it worked because you already knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But for someone that doesn't know what's going on, I really think I don't think there's anything wrong with holding someone's hand for the first 10 minutes of learning how a game is played. I think that's important.
Yeah, and I mean, what was the reason? I don't even remember what the reason or rationale was for getting rid of Tutorial Island.
Oh, it was probably a poll.
I know the quest was pulled. Underwater Tutorial Island quest. I know that was pulled.
That's because we said we would like that back, please.
Yeah.
Even though it's under the water, we'll take it.
And you know, it brings back a lot of memories too, and that was very nice. So maybe
that was what got me in.
Yeah,
you know.
And I think that, you know, having Tutorial Island in there for someone who is old in terms of RuneScape is a good thing because it jogs that memory, and it's more likely to make you continue on that track of how you first started out.
Well, because maybe the influx that we're expecting, it may not even be completely new players. These might be players that played the game literally 10 years ago and remember it from when they were in school or something.
Yeah.
And they're going to come back to it and they're going to be like, oh, wow, Tutorial Island. You know, otherwise they'd be completely lost. And, you know, after that long, I mean, if you don't stay up on RuneScape, you're lost within 6 months.
Yep.
So this, I think,
unless you listen to RSBANDB update while you're
and that's right, because we are the first responders. But I, I love the fact that it's could be coming back, and I think the nostalgic part of Tutorial Island is that is where you learn, like, okay, so this skill goes with this skill. So the mining goes with the smithing. So I can mine this piece, and I can make a dagger or whatever. I can cook my food. Oh, I can fish and cook my food. Like, you kind of see all the synergy behind all the skills. Now, you don't always end up playing like that. Once you get going, you can go buy what you need. But in the beginning, it's really nice to explore that stuff, and it kind of gives you this, this rich tapestry of.
They even have the same
game.
Vinaka combat instructor in there. And,
that's awesome.
And it teaches people right out the gate to equip that bronze dagger, right-click the cog in the action bar, and choose Setup Action Bar.
Perfect. See, that's where you put the ability stuff.
Yeah.
Like right,
and it toggles it on with Revolution as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all there. And one other thing to talk about with this is that it is quick. I was in and out in under 12 minutes, and I was taking my time. I stopped along the way to talk to people. I stopped along the way to look at things. I stopped along the way to send a few messages. So
now, I know this is hard to do, it's very hard to do, but if you had never seen RuneScape before, do you feel like you would have left that island at least knowing a little bit on how to play the game? Just having some idea?
Well, I would have known how to train woodcutting, fire making, cooking, fishing, smithing, mining, and the basics of combat. Well, I think at least. I would have also known how to access the bank. I would have known how to access my own quest log as well. And one great thing they did with this, and I can really tell they're going for a nostalgic viewpoint on this, is that when you start this out, you cannot edit the interface. So we're not giving the users the full access to the interface system here. It starts with the map in the top right, the action bar in the bottom left. Then it stacks in your stats, your inventory, your worn equipments item, and your quest log in the traditional way that the quest log always looked.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Rather than telling you to click the adventures button, it just pops that in there. And, that's one of the problems with EOC, is that you have the hero menu that you can set up, and you can access all your achievements from and whatnot, Like, you have that.
Yeah.
And that's fine and dandy, but that's a very complicated interface to get going. And what they're attempting to do here, at least in the very beginning, is set up the interface so that it resembles something that is like the old legacy interface, except different.
It's not so foreign to someone that would be coming back that they would be completely lost. At the same time, giving you room to grow, to learn the new, stuff as you went.
Also, another interesting thing, when you talk to the banker, it tells you where you need to click, and what it does in the little tooltip that pops up is it shows the new banking icon and the old banking icon if you were to use the legacy UI.
Okay, now is the stuff can you still move things around?
Oh, I mean, no, not in Tutorial Island.
Not in Tutorial
Island, but it sets you up by preparing you to know if you want to know what the legacy bank icon looks like and the new bank icon, if you use the legacy UI for some reason.
Right, okay.
So that's
good to explain that, so that people aren't confused.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end, they teach you about magic and show you where the magic spell book is. They don't have you cast anything. instead what they just have you do is say, hey, click the home teleport button, and that's the lodestone network. And that's their final teaching tool is the lodestone network, and you use the lodestone to get back to Lumbridge.
Okay.
So, and I mean, it basically highlights it for you and then tells you where to click if you decide to go running around Tutorial Island like that, like I did. But like I said, you're in and out in under 12 minutes if you just kill one rat, smith one dagger and whatnot, because you can stay there and you can smith longer if you want to, or you can kill things longer if you want to. So, and the good thing about this also is that if you wanted to run a skill peer, it doesn't give you a huge amount of XP where you're going to have to get more than level 1 in attack. Because if you were on Ashdale before and you did the combat tutorial, you would get, I think, level 3 in attack, and some people don't want that.
Yeah.
So you would, if you were doing Ashdale and you didn't want combat XP, you would have had to press the escape button and skip out the tutorial. Whereas here, if you don't want combat XP, you just kill one rat and away you go.
Yeah, that's a much better way of doing it than have to go and reset.
Yeah.
Like down, Lumbridge, I think it is. You can go and reset, but yeah, that's much simpler. See, I just like the simplicity. I think sometimes the best answer is the simplest one.
Yeah, and see, the thing I need to be aware of is that I did this as a test case for the podcast. Now, what I need to do after this is I need to ensure that I do something on this character so it doesn't look like I played Tutorial Island and just close the game.
Mm.
And that's what I'm going to suggest to everyone out there is that if you want to see Tutorial Island and you make an account like I did, make sure that you use the account afterwards and you actually play on the account a bit, because if you don't, that will send the telemetry to Jagex that, oh, these people did Tutorial Island and they're not playing the game.
Yep.
So that's just a bit of word of warning out there if anyone tries what I did here.
And if you can't think of anything you want to do with an account, park it over the RuneSpan, get you 50. That's the level you need for Viswax, and do it every day. You'll pay for your bond. You'll pay for... I'm serious. You'll make money, trust me.
Good point. Good point. All right. But yeah, I mean, Tutorial Island, I just can't think of what that means for having the potential to come back and be the new game experience.
Yeah, it's cool.
You know what? I think a good thing to do in this case would be to see what actual people think who are not familiar with RuneScape.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that.
Yep.
So fingers crossed that this makes its way back. And, Tutorial Island is a lot simpler than Ashdale. And when you're thinking about mobile and you're thinking about a limited interface, simple as king.
Yep, exactly.
So there's the reasoning.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that little discussion on Tutorial Island. I know that was very happy when I saw that. And I didn't tell anyone about this except for I don't think I even told you, Tannis, until we started recording the show that this was happening.
Yeah, I didn't know you did it. I mean, I had seen it out there, but I actually didn't know what A/B testing was. I thought it meant like alpha or something. I'm like, oh, I wonder who has access to that. I didn't think we could just do that. So, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of other things that are in testing, this week ModJack released the design documents for Masterwork Armor, and this was one of the pieces of the mining and smithing update that wasn't initially included when it went to beta. And suffice to say, Masterwork Armor is going to be very rewarding. So, Masterwork Armor pieces will require level 99 smithing to make. They will result in an item level 90 piece of equipment that requires 90 defense to wear. The armor will degrade to broken state, and it will be power armor. Now, The process of creating masterwork armor is complicated, time-consuming, and expensive. This is intentional in order to add value to the items and to make them profitable to make. And you'll see why that is important in just a moment. There's going to be 5 pieces of armor: the helmet, the plate body, the plate legs, the gauntlets, and the boots. Now, this is going to be, at the end, the upgraded masterwork armor is going to be the only tier 92 source at the beginning of power armor in the game. Tier 92 melee power armor is going to come from smithing. You heard it here first, and this is what Jagex wants to do with the mining and smithing update. And I'm just going to say at the top of this, I'm very pleased with this. I think this is something that they needed to do. So, immediate thumbs up right here. Now, you might be wondering, how does this get made? We don't have a playtest of it yet, so we're going to go through some of the design documents here. And I hear that sigh, and that's for a very good reason.
I mean, you grab a hammer and go to town.
Yeah. So, basically, before any masterwork armor can be made, you must unlock the ability to make that piece. Doing so requires the player to make a +5 Elder Rune armor piece for that slot, and you must do it from scratch. So you must make a +5 Elder Rune helmet, plate body, plate legs, gauntlets, and boots to unlock the ability to make masterwork armor, as well as 99 smithing and access to the Dragon Forge. So, masterwork armor will be made from something they're calling glorious bars, which are then smithed in a, quote, complex process and combined with easily obtained materials. Glorious bars are immaculate alloy bars, which have been folded 1,001 times in order to make them glorious. And this is the backstory behind these here right now. The same number of glorious bars is needed as would be needed to make a regular piece of armor for that slot. So, for example, +5 for a plate body, +2 for the plate legs, and so on and so forth. So, let's talk about how you make a glorious bar. So first and foremost, you start with 1 bar of each of the bars that is in the smithing skill. So 1 bronze, iron, steel, mithril, adamant, so on and so forth, all the way up to Elder Rune bar. You smith these for 4 cycles to get 1 concentrated alloy bar. Then 10 concentrated alloy bars for 8 cycles becomes an enriched alloy bar. Then 10 enriched alloy bars for 16 cycles become 1 immaculate alloy bar. Now, Jagex has done the math here for us. This is a total of 298 cycles, or 5 minutes. So the total time for completing the armor set, which is 12 bars, is 60 minutes. 60 minutes to get enough immaculate alloy bars to make the entire armor set. Now, you're wondering, how do you get glorious bars from this? Well, the immaculate alloy bars need to be folded 1,001 times. Folding is simple, but lengthy. You basically run the immaculate alloy bar through whatever piece of equipment they're going to design for this for 4 cycles, and you get folded alloy bar 0. And you repeat this 1,000 times until you get a glorious bar. And basically, every time the folded bar to folded bar recipe is repeated, a variable increments on the player, and once this variable reaches 1,000, the next time the bar is folded, it becomes a glorious bar. This means that only 1 bar can be folded at a time, just like you can only have 1 in-progress smithing object at a time as well. And the total time for this is 4,012 cycles, or 40 minutes. So the total time to complete the armor set of 12 bars is 480 minutes, which is 8
Probably
hours.
at max efficiency.
8 hours. 8 hours of game time to create the armor set.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
And here's where it gets good for the high-level smiths. Immaculate and glorious bars are tradable.
Yeah.
So people who want to skip a part of the stage are going to be able to do it, except they're going to need to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it should be at the high level.
It is exactly how it should be. Now, I think it's perfect in that it should take 8 hours. I 100% think it should, because when you think of the idea, and this is what I'm thinking.
It's tier
too,
90 power armor.
There's that, but also like masterwork should mean something. Like in the real world, masterwork would be something that a smith would work on day after day, and it's, there's so much pride and work that goes into it. So I'm glad that it takes that long. Now, I think part of that length is to kind of, one, it makes it fair. Two, I think it's also to kind of like pre-quill the blowback they'll get from the PVM community.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see if this has made it anywhere yet, because this really hasn't been publicized all that much.
Well, and here's what I'm going to say about that. Hear me now, quote me later. It doesn't matter what you do. They are going to not be happy, no matter what you do. They want it to drop. The only things that they want is stuff that pertains to them, which is dropped from a monster. So, luckily, Jagex thought of that, and you do have to have components that would be dropped, so there will be a synergy there.
For the upgraded masterwork.
For the upgraded masterwork. But otherwise, there's going to be blowback. It's going to come from that side of the community, and you just got to weather the storm, because they wouldn't be they're not happy with the idea of a skiller being able to make that armor. And so there's nothing you can do to make that better. There's nothing you can do to kind of, to appease that. It is what it is. And if this is the direction you want to go, this is the direction you got to go.
Yeah. And it increases its complexity from here. So you might be wondering now, do I just, click a hammer and I get the masterwork plate body or masterwork helmet? No, you do not. So
nope. Take a breath. Are you ready?
Yeah, it becomes more involved. So one glorious bar, you run it for 1,000 progress, and that gives you a masterwork plate. Now, that's not a masterwork plate body. That's just a masterwork plate. So this masterwork plate then gets worked some more for 500 more cycles to get a curved masterwork plate. The curved masterwork plate then gets worked for 100 more cycles to get an untempered masterwork armor piece. And this is where it gets interesting, of course. The untempered masterwork armor piece gets smith for another 100 cycles, this time only at the Dragon Forge. And that gives you one masterwork armor piece. Now you add some soft leather to it for 10 cycles to get one lined masterwork armor piece. You create 10 masterwork rivets with one steel bar now. And then you take your two lined masterwork armor pieces, work them for 10 cycles to get an unfinished masterwork helmet, 0. And then the unfinished masterwork helmet X and one rivet will give you an unfinished masterwork helmet X plus 1. And then unfinished masterwork helmet 20 for 10 cycles finally gives you a masterwork helmet.
Ooh.
So you can see you need to go through this process for each of the bars, and then you have some work to do yet after that with the rivets and whatnot, and lining it before you get to the masterwork helmet.
I hope it looks good. God, please look good.
Yeah.
Please look good. Because I want to show this off when I'm done with it.
Right? Right. For the masterwork plate body, that requires 5 lined masterwork armor pieces worked for 25 cycles, so 5 cycles each. That gives you the unfinished masterwork plate body. Then you put masterwork rivets in that for 5 cycles. You get X plus 1 unfinished masterwork plate body. Then the unfinished masterwork plate body 50 gets worked for 25 more cycles, giving you the masterwork plate body. And the process repeats similarly to that for the plate legs, the gauntlets, and the boots. And as you can see here, this takes a lot of time. Now, I'm level 93 smithing right now, and this design document has me thinking, oh, boy, that would be nice to have 99 smithing and get access to the Masterwork armor on the day of release.
For sure.
So, whether you keep that set for yourself or you sell it, that's a question.
I'm going to do it. And I'm going to mine all of the stuff myself and just go through this whole, like, process of creating my armor from scratch.
Yeah, and
last armor I ever need.
And you need to start with, the Elder Rune +5, and then you break it down further. So, and there's a bit of a rundown here as to how long this takes. So, total per bar time is 1620 progress plus 170 cycles, which will take about 12 minutes. The total time to assemble the complete armor set, which is 12 bars, is 130 minutes. Total time for complete armor set, 12 glorious bars. The total materials for the complete armor set will be 12 glorious bars, 12 soft leather, and 12 steel bars. And the total time for complete armor set, including making the bars, is roughly, Jagex estimates, 700 minutes. Almost 12 hours.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's fair.
And I mean, you can see right here. Here's the trade-off. You can either spend 12 hours smithing, or you can just go dump some money on the GE and you can purchase the tier 90 armor or whatnot that's available there.
Yeah, but we will need to see if their estimates hold, because I know during the mining and smithing beta, the smithing was kind of the iffier part of it. That's the part that took a really long time. So we'll see what happens. But I like the idea, and I like the kind of like sketch that we have here.
Yeah, and keep in mind this hasn't been play tested yet, and there's the big heading at the top that says if players hate it, we'll change it. But let's, of course, remember here that we need to be listening as to who's actually playing the beta.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and like I said, there are going to be players that hate it, but I don't think it has to do with the mechanics of what they've described here. I just don't. I think they're adverse to the idea of a skiller being able to make their own armor like that, because that is what they view as their bread and butter and their way that they make money. So,
yep.
I think you really have to focus on getting feedback from people that are going to be doing it and testing it and trying it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why the first play test will be so important. That's why, our feedback on the play test will be so important as well. Given where we've been and what we've done so far with the mining and smithing beta, I'd like to call that a success of what we've done. And, with that, I think it's about time that this portion of the game community be listened to.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're really making progress this year. Things are going in the right direction, and I think we're finally starting to find this balance. We'll see what happens when Solak comes out, but if that goes off well, then we've had a really good balance and everyone is happy, which is exactly what you want, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think we did the best that we could do, because we genuinely put in the time and effort to test that beta and really give it a fair shot. And I mean,
we're talking about this right now, but you need to ask, when it comes to play testing, how many people are going to spend the full almost 12 hours testing this?
Oh, very few.
Right. And
I know a couple that will.
One of them is going to be on this podcast.
That's right. Two.
Okay, two. Thank you. So, I really want the play test for this. I think it needs to go out the same way that the initial mining and smithing beta did. So
Yeah, for sure.
Just a note here, Masterwork items will give poor XP rewards for the time and materials invested. It's not intended to be an effective method of training. If it gave good XP, the value on the GE would be low, possibly even lower than the materials. And some of you might be asking, why is that the case? Well, if it gave good XP, that would encourage people to make it more, and that would increase the supply of it, therefore lowering the price.
Yeah, no, I think that's I feel like it's the acceptable balance. That this makes sense. You know, the high XP, they already have a solution for that, and that's like your regular bars plus 5 or whatever, or
and then decorating them.
And then decorating them, yeah. So I mean, I think everything actually has been thought of, and I think this fits really well.
All right, let's talk about the upgraded Masterwork armor now, because this is their way of quelling the PVM community. I feel with this, because the upgraded Masterwork armor is going to be tier 92 power armor for melee, and they say this will be the only source of tier 92 melee power armor available, ensuring its value, and it's going to require components from tier 80 armor that is dropped in game. So, it's also going to degrade to dust. So there's that too. It's also going to be augmentable and tradable. So, yeah, we got the whole shebang thought of here. So, requires level 99 smithing. To make an upgraded Masterwork helmet, you're going to need the Masterwork helmet and a set number of energized inlays. And these energized inlays correspond to the number of bars that you would have initially needed. So 2 for the helmet, 5 for the plate body, 3 for the plate legs, 1 for the gauntlets, and 1 for the boots. And those give you the upgraded pieces of Masterwork armor. And each of these works for a small number of cycles, so 40 to 100. So not insanely long. Now you might be wondering, what is an energized inlay? Well, an energized inlay is 1 Elder Bar, 1 Praesilic Essence, and 1 Malevolent Essence worked for 100 cycles, giving you an energized inlay. Now, Praesilic Essence comes from Torva armor, and you work it at the Dragon Forge. So Torva full helmet worked at the Dragon Forge will give you 2 Praesilic Essence. Torva plate body will give you 5. Torva plate legs gives you 3. Torva gloves gives you 1, and Torva boots gives you 1 as well. So, only full repaired Torva armor will be broken down this way. Other drops from next are not going to be broken down this way. So, there's going to be a money sink here now for Torva armor.
Well, I really like that they are using an existing boss with existing equipment rather than just tacking on yet like another reward with the new boss.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
therefore
just
keeping this
it's Nex.
relevant, Yeah.
It's Nex. It's not Nex Angel of Death. It's just Nex.
Well, and even saying just Nex, I mean, still.
I mean, it's still a feat, but it's not Angel of Death or Telos or something like that, right?
Right. I mean, I can't do it, but I think it's a more accessible boss than, than like you said, AOD or something like that.
Yeah. Malevolent Essence is combined by breaking down Malevolent armor at the Dragon Forge, and if the armor is not at full charge, it will give proportionally less essence, and it's going to be rounded down to the nearest whole essence. So, for example, legs at 99 would only give 2 essence rather than 3. Malevolent Essence is used rather than Malevolent Energy so that the existing mechanics and items of Rise of the Six are protected somewhat. If energy were used, the armor would lose a lot of its value. So, same thing. Rise of the Six is going to be protected from this as well.
Yep.
And it gets broken down in similar ways. And, that's pretty much all there is to upgraded armor. It's a much simpler process to create it than the actual Masterwork armor, I think. And, I mean, I think that's a good compromise for Tier 92.
Oh, yeah. I think so, too. I think it works really well. I mean, the team they have on this rework, I've just been really, really pleased with the decisions they're making.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there's really something for everyone in this. So if you are opposed to this because you like your armor drop from PVM, I would say to you, don't be opposed to this, because here's why. You can still, if you wanted to diversify your gameplay, you can go smith some Masterwork armor and sell it. Or you can even just smith the bars and sell it. Or if you prefer to keep doing PVM, you can go to Nex or Rise of the Six and get some of this armor and sell it on the exchange, because you know it's going to be purchasable on the day it comes out. So,
oh yeah,
I mean, why not, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure.
And that's what I mean. There's something
I hope that's
for
what happens. I hope that's what happens. I think you're a little more optimistic than I am.
Oh, believe me, I know that there are people who are going to be doubters for this. I'm just not mentioning that. So
okay.
I'm just saying that because I want everyone to feel, whether you're a combat person or a skilling person, that there's something for you in upgraded Masterwork armor. Because at the end of the day, everyone likes GP. And everyone can get lots and lots of GP from this.
Yeah, this is a way that everyone can kind of share in the bounty of a new T92 piece of armor. So I think it's really cool. And like you said, there is something for everybody. So give it a chance.
There's even something for the RNG haters who would, who want to get, a good tier 92 piece of armor, but they don't like RNG. So there you go.
Oh yeah. Well, and think about it. I mean, is there anywhere where you would put in? I mean, there may be, but is there anywhere where you're going to put in 12 hours at a certain boss to get a set of armor?
Probably more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, it's power armor too, and that's what's always in demand at the high tiers, right?
Yeah.
I think we're well on our way to making Melee great again.
We might be.
We just need actually, no, Melee is already actually pretty good when you think about it, the abilities it has.
Been,
so.
Yeah, we'll have to give it something anyway.
Yeah. Of note here, Tier 92 magic and ranged armor will definitely not be released at the same time. The release of these armors will depend on release schedule and finding appropriate content to drop them from. Now, could you imagine if you had Tier 92 magic and ranged armor coming from 99 crafting and 99 rune crafting?
Never say never.
So this just opens up another whole potential avenue to go down with this. So,
well, if this works, then it's yet another template, another path that they have created that they can continue down. And that's good. That's good for us. That lessens the time for the next, you know what I mean? Like, it's good to have all the hard parts kind of like tested and done. It's like, okay, we know that this general idea works. So now all we have to do is fit ranged into it or fit magic into it. So I think it's cool.
Yep, definitely. All right, and just a bit of a remark here before we move on to our questions for the week. The Equinox items are now available on Treasure Hunter. These are cosmetics only. They don't have any absurd stats to them. They're just Equinox items that look rather neat and have lots of moving parts to them. So,
pretty cool.
You can collect them and you get the components by playing the game as well. So I think... I don't think this is a severely broken Treasure Hunter promotion with this one, and I think it strikes the right balance.
Yeah, especially being all cosmetic, I don't mind that at all.
Indeed. All right. So moving on to the questions, we got an audio question from Parnassius.
All right.
Hello, it is Panasius here. And a bit of a random question this week, but one I thought might be interesting to discuss. We heard in the previous Q&A that they had last week, I think it was, that they didn't have the budget to do the graphics to upgrade the entirety of Mosler Harmless for the Pirate Quest. So my question would be, do you think a GoFundMe account would be successful for Jagex for graphical updates like that? We've seen companies such as Lightseekers do GoFundMes before, and I just thought it might be something that, while it's not in their budgets, if the players could donate money, A, would it be ethical for them to ask that, and B, do you think it would be successful? Thanks for this discussion in advance, and I'll see you all in-game.
You want the first swing at that one, buddy?
Yeah, I think that I think they could accomplish a lot by doing that. I don't think, however, that it would be a good way, or rather send a good message to the community, especially the skeptical community. And I think it also raises a bunch of accounting issues. So the difference between RuneScape and Lightseekers is that RuneScape is a company with shareholders that is a multi-million-pound company and has hundreds of employees and has a huge established game title. Whereas Lightseekers, on the other hand, was started by Mark Gerhardt, the former CEO of Jagex, and that's his new company. And, when you are starting a new company like that, you do need to sometimes go for GoFundMe in order to raise your profile, do an initial round of funding, and bring people in and get people interested. The issue where I think it comes up for RuneScape is that there is an issue of optics for this and what that would be. It would be along the lines of, Jagex is asking for more money in addition to the $5, $7, or $10 a month I pay them in order to provide me content that everyone else is going to be able to play. Why would I want to? Tip Jagex in this way? I think that could be one potential optic issue that comes up, and I think another issue is that you would in effect be paying more tax on this revenue when it comes in, because you would need to declare this revenue when it comes in as another revenue stream, and you would be paying tax on it. Whereas right now, there are, specific revenue streams that Jagex can go with. They can go with their fairly limited revenue stream of, selling RuneFest tickets and selling merchandise, their main revenue stream of membership, and their secondary revenue stream of microtransactions, all of which are equally developed. And if this was to be done for a one-off update, I don't think that there would necessarily be the appetite to do that internally for the amount of accounting work that would entail. So, as much as I think it would be a nice way for people to tip Jagex and whatnot, I just think it would be too much on the inside, internally, on the accounting side of it to, for lack of a better word, account for this and ensure that it is going to be a consistent stream, because you're going to need someone to set this up. You're going to need someone to legally ensure that it's viable and all of that other stuff that you need to think of when you're running a company. So I don't think that it's something that, would be worth the time to look into unless it was going to become a major revenue stream, i.e. more than 20% of the company's revenue. And I don't see that happening based on the amount of people that would submit with that. And then, as I mentioned, you also have the optics issue. What would people think if Jagex is asking for more money for optional pieces of content that everyone's going to get to play after the fact? I think it's a nice gesture for people who want to give more money to Jagex, but at the same time, I don't think it fits with the company's current business model. So there we go.
Okay. Well, and I'm kind of along the same page, but where I come down on that is I've seen One, you're right about the skeptical community. I don't think it sends the right message in any way, shape, or form. Resources have to be delegated and decided on, and so we start up a GoFundMe for a graphical rework. Well, what happens next week when a different group of people want something else? And, well, we'll pay for it ourselves. And it doesn't address the question of, that's going to take more personnel. The money is one thing, but it's also all the logistics that go with the money and all of that. Two, I think we all are familiar with a game that has burn us either via Kickstarter or early access or what have you, whatever the method was, where we put in money thinking that something
No Man's Sky
to support. That wasn't early access. That's the problem. Yeah. So, but Mighty Number 9 was in Kickstarter limbo forever and still came out not well. We're familiar with these things, and I don't want that possible reputation or connotation to get attached
precisely
to Jagex.
Precisely.
Because I think they're better than that. So
now,
yeah.
Now here's an idea. I don't know. I think this would be a lot more doable internally. It would still present the optics issues, but this would be a way to accomplish that without resorting to an external partner like GoFundMe. You introduce a new kind of bond. And you say, any bonds purchased during this time period, if we reach this amount of money, you will get this. If you reach this amount of money, we will get that. And if you reach the ultimate end goal, you will get a graphical rework of Ardoyan.
As in, support would be the measure of that?
Yeah. It's kind of like the way it turned out when they were doing this, the signatures on the petition for old school RuneScape back in 2013. And, if we get 500,000 signatures, we'll get that. They didn't get to 500,000, but they still gave it that level of support. So basically what I'm saying is that, if there was a way, if there was something that Jagex was willing to do, but, there just wasn't the time allocation, if it was something that Jagex had prototyped internally, was entirely doable and is on the radar at some point in the future, it's just not doable for time right now, but players wanted it, I would say introduce a second kind of bond, and then say, if you reach this number of bonds sold, we'll do this number will do that, and if you reach this third milestone, you'll get the whole thing. And this has the added benefit of being a revenue stream that already exists on the company's financial sheets, and it gives a way for people who just have GP to contribute to this as well, because presumably you would be able to purchase a standard bond like we have in game right now, pay some amount of money, more than the tax to convert it to tradable, to say, here, I'm in effect saying, I want this as well. We're going to dump that much money into it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I think that's a more plausible, because then you can gauge how many people really are wanting it, and you don't have that connection to the negative sides. Yeah.
Now the only downside of this is that you create a secondary bond type end game that could potentially sell for more. You would need to make this a limited amount and make them in effect untradeable if purchased with real world money.
Yeah.
I don't know, or maybe.
And then what happens to that? What happens to that item if people paid real world money and it doesn't meet the thresholds?
Well, then it just goes into the Jagex's revenue stream as a tip.
Because
And see, there's the problem with that, and the optics that comes with it. So
yeah,
I think what we have done here is we have outlined a way that this could be possible. I still don't think it's a good idea for optics.
No. There's too much risk for minimal gain, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
It was a good
yeah, it
intellectual
was.
exercise.
It was, and I came into this saying that it was completely a bad idea, but when I started reading the question and listening to the question, I thought, okay, so GoFundMe is the issue. How can we eliminate that issue? And that's how I came up with that alternate form of bond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you did this as well, you would have a bigger problem than you did when the polls were running to determine the updates.
Oh, yeah, because like I said, if you don't meet those thresholds and people put in real money, I came into it thinking it might not be a very good idea, just given where we're at. And basically, in my experience, not with RuneScape, but with other games that have went down this road, and always feeling unsatisfied that I just wouldn't want that to happen again. And I'm leaving going, yeah, I was right. I still like Shane's got a good possibility, but as it stated, nope. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I mean, you would in effect be in a situation where, let's just use the example. Let's just call them war bonds because they've been called that in the past before. So let's say, the idea comes up to rework a graphical area and you purchase a war bond with real world money that would probably be for $5. Now, you're purchasing this to give it directly to Jagex. Okay. So you purchase that, it goes into game, and you redeem it, and it signifies your support for that update. So you are in effect paying for the right to give Jagex more money and say, I want this update. Now, if someone in-game comes in, they would in effect need to purchase, I don't know, I'd say 2 or 3 standard bonds to be able to have the same kind of say in a war bond. And the issue with that is that there are people with billions of GP who will just dump them in there. Mm-hmm. Granted, that would be a nice GP sink, but hey, that's not what we're going for at the end of the day.
Yeah. I don't feel like the money is what the issue is, because even if Jagex had all of the money and all the resources in the world,
it's time.
It's time. You still have to delegate and decide what the right direction was. And with this particular, in this case, they had to decide what they had time to do and what the appropriate amount to spend on it would be. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just the money.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty. Thank you, Parnassius. Next one is from Tycho Alf. So, Tycho Alf here with a short but classic question that I tend to ask players. If you would both get 30 seconds of full attention from all employees at Jagex, what would you say? Thanks for the podcast and see you this weekend. Well, that's not what we would say, but... You know.
It's hard. It's a really hard one. I don't know. I'm conflicted. What would you say, Shane?
I would.
And who would you say it to?
It would have to be towards the lead designer for RuneScape. So what? Probably Maud Osborne, I think, at this point.
Okay.
At the start of every year, craft a plan, stick with it, explain to players, be persuasive, stick to it, execute, observe, and measure. And tweak where needed.
And cancel when it's not working?
Well, hopefully we won't get to that point, but...
Because I seem to remember a good consolation.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because, we're at a point, I think, where years that have RuneScape strategy and years that have a general outline of what to complete and years that have a theme behind them tend to go off better than years that don't. In this case, the year is focused on, I'd say, two very large updates: the mining and smithing rework and improving skills in general. That's what we have this year. Whereas last year we were told you're getting expansions and Menaphos, but we weren't really told what much else there was with that. So
There wasn't much else with that.
exactly.
It wasn't a mystery.
And it
They
was
didn't have
told,
anything.
it was decided on that by players. And this also comes into what I said, is that come up with a plan and stick with it. And in some cases, we don't need to be told what the plan is.
Right.
If I could sum it up even further, I would say that it just needs to be a case of believing in yourself and having the courage to push updates that you guys feel are right for the game. Because if you look back at RuneScape history, so many updates in the game's history, that's precisely what they were. They were updates that Jagex thought of, that Jagex designed, and just went off, well, completely without a hitch.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm speaking, of course, before the evolution of combat. Because I think we can all agree that the evolution of combat and the reaction to that is what gave the pause to begin with, that led to the era of uncertainty.
It made them gun shy.
Exactly.
It's just,
Actually, no, that's actually a better thing to say. Don't be gun shy.
Yeah. So,
That's actually the better thing to say. Create a plan, stick with it, don't be gun shy.
yeah. Let's go for it.
Yeah. How about you?
I kind of have two. So, on a serious level, I would probably talk to Mod Osborne too and beg and plead, please, 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 put a microphone in front of someone and let them read the dialogue box so that I can listen to my quest. Please.
And you're not talking voice acting here.
You don't have to voice act. They don't have to be more than an audible book.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just
narration
please.
For accessibility.
Yes. That's all I want. If you give me that, I would be happy forever. But most importantly, and let me level with you, Mod Osborne. You love the lore, and I really like it too. I'm not as big of a lore hound as the members of Clan Quest, but I did enjoy it. And the part that I really, really enjoyed was when they were in the quest, and I want to immerse myself in that again, and it's a lot more difficult for me to do that now. So I just want to get on the same page as everybody, because I think you tell good stories, and I want to enjoy them too.
And you should say also that this is because of vision accessibility.
Yeah, that's because my vision is I don't have hardly any. So dialogue boxes are not fun to read. So I can magnify them, but it just it takes really long time, and by the time you're done reading it, you've kind of forgot where you were in the quest, and it's not very comfortable.
All right. Well, thank you, Tycho, for that question. And, it's sometimes the simplest questions that do get the best response from this. And, I think that this is something that lots of people can think of. And, I think based on what we said here in this, 5 or so minutes we were talking about, that would have been really impactful. So,
yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to tech news right now, but if you guys want to send in your own audio questions or your own questions or discussion topics, you can do that too. You just need to send them to questions@rsbnb.com, or you can leave it on Twitter @RSBNB, @mention us, direct message us, we take both. Or if you want to call us in to the Google Voice number, that's 571-57BNB or 571-572-2632. And we also take text messages there as well. So that's an option for those of you guys who might not want to use your voice. Okay, on to tech news we go. A big week in tech news this week. So we had, not too long ago, the issues with Meltdown and Spectre in the Intel chips. Now, we thought at the time that, AMD might also be compromised in this, and AMD, was compromised from Meltdown Inspector. But it gets worse this week. There is a new collection, and I'm using the word collection because there are many of them. There are more than 2 vulnerabilities for AMD CPUs. Now, you might be wondering, who uses AMD CPUs anymore these days? Intel is where all the performance is. Yes, well, that's true. AMD still offers good quality CPUs at a bargain that many people still elect to purchase. So basically the vulnerability that we have here is that on these CPUs, these newer AMD CPUs, they have what's called a coprocessor that is in effect designed to be a secure area that the operating system that's running is not able to access. So AMD's Secure Enclave, much like the iPhone has a whole collection of critical flaws that attackers could ultimately use to exploit and run malware on it. And what makes it even worse is that it's nearly impossible to detect. So
Right.
that's pretty bad. And what makes it even worse than that, it gets worse. This provides direct access to a vulnerable computer's most sensitive secrets.
Oh, so there's that.
Yeah. The flaws exist in AMD's EPYC, EPYC, Ryzen, Ryzen Pro, and Ryzen Mobile lines of processors. The attacker will need to gain administrative rights on a targeted network or a computer. Yes, well, this is difficult, but it's no means impossible at this time. From there, the attackers can exploit vulnerabilities to achieve extraordinary feats that would be catastrophic for the owner's long-term security. Among other things, these include running persistent malware inside the AMD secure processor that's impossible or nearly impossible to detect, bypassing advanced protections such as AMD's secured encrypted virtualization firmware, trusted platform module, and other security features which are intended to secure systems and sensitive data in the event that malware infects a computer's operating system, stealing credentials from a vulnerable computer that uses to access networks, or physically destroying hardware by attackers in hardware-based ransomware scenarios. So these are 4 very real possible things that are available to be done in AMD's EPYC, Ryzen, Ryzen Pro, and mobile lines of processors. Now, the catch with this is that, much like the Intel Meltdown Inspector vulnerabilities, AMD is able to deploy a fix to make it harder to exploit these, but at the same time, they are not going to be truly fixed until the next version of AMD processors ship. The 4 vulnerability types that have been discovered with this are dubbed Master Key, Rise and Fall, Fallout, and Chimera. They were described in a 20-page report headlined Severe Security Advisory on AMD Processors. So this, let's be clear here, is entirely massive because the Israeli organization that published the report that says that this may have either indirectly or directly an economic interest in the performance of stock in AMD or other companies. So while the people that are publishing this do have an interest in what happens to AMD, they had to publish this anyways, regardless of the outcome it would have to them. And that just underscores how important this was. There was also some, critique from the online security industry because the researchers who discovered these exploits gave AMD only 24 hours to review the report before it went public. Whereas with Intel's Meltdown Inspector, Intel knew about this since June of last year and was working on fixes with Microsoft, Apple, and other relevant companies in question. So here we are. Nothing has been proven to be out in the wild yet, but it's definitely possible. And this just underscores once again how important it is to have good security and why we think something might be secure, like a CPU, but it can come out, hey, it's not secure at all.
Yeah.
So
Just kidding.
we don't know how wide or expansive this is going to be, or if there's going to be proof of concept for this, or if it's ever going to be exploited. But what we do know is that if this were to be exploited, it would be really bad, potentially worse than Meltdown Inspector. Because as it said, someone has the potential to turn an AMD CPU into a ransomware device, effectively rendering that chip useless.
Yeah. Or stealing the credentials from a network computer. That could be disastrous too, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can get into a whole world of possibility there. It's bad.
And you see, this is what you get this day and age. You know, Intel's vulnerability existed for a long time, but this is a very advanced chip because this is, in effect, a processor within a processor running its own code. And that's what's vulnerable here, because this secure processor is actually needed to run the individual chip. So if that doesn't run, you got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, at this point, you were thinking, oh, maybe I'll buy an AMD to get out of Meltdown Inspector. But this is actually looking worse than Meltdown Inspector at this point.
Yeah, well, and it's not that easy because when you switch, you have to switch everything. This isn't necessarily a Ford and Chevy deal. If there is a silver lining, the AMD processors are more reasonable. So if you have to buy the next generation when it actually is fixed, you won't be out quite as much money as the Intel users. Yeah. So that's good.
I remember back in the day when Intel was having issues, the general sense was that Intel is good, but if you just needed to work on gaming, go for AMD.
Mm-hmm.
So, boy, we'll definitely be watching this one, but, given the fact that we have seen motherboard manufacturers like Asus and Gigabyte not patch by the BIOS for Meltdown Inspector, I don't know if AMD is going to go back and patch all their old chips on this. So, yeah. Fingers crossed that nothing bad happens with this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and one more thing on this. They can also bypass the secure signature checks with this. So the AMD chips are supposed to require that the firmware run on them be digitally signed. The exploits can bypass that too.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah, very fun. So, just to worry everyone out there who might have AMD.
Do you ever wonder if actual hackers and bad guys and all that actually knew this before they came out with it? Or we just told people about it now? It's like, oh, by the way,
this one came out quick. This one came out quick, and they tend to keep these things under wraps for a long time. Like I said, with Intel's Meltdown Inspector, they did know about those back in June, but everyone, Intel, Microsoft, Google, Apple, they all kept the lid on it until patches were ready. So that's typically how it's supposed to work. But AMD was just given 24 hours here too, so that can also play into this, into determining how bad the outcome is.
It just makes, I don't know, it just makes me wonder sometimes if we're not handing or giving the criminals more ideas than they had to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Anyways, also speaking of future potential security issues going forward, Broadcom this week attempted to buy Qualcomm. Now, you might be wondering, what is Broadcom and Qualcomm? Well, chances are you have used Broadcom or Qualcomm hardware in the past. Qualcomm and Broadcom make Bluetooth adapters. So if your laptop has Bluetooth or your phone has Bluetooth, there's a good chance that Qualcomm might have made that. Broadcom and Qualcomm also make modems and LTE adapters, so your smartphone might have one of those in it too. So this week on Monday, President Trump in the United States blocked Broadcom's $117 billion bid for chipmaker Qualcomm. And he cited national security concerns. And with this, he was sending a clear signal that he's willing to take extraordinary measures to promote the administration's increasingly protectionist stance. And you can agree or disagree with what the Trump administration does here. But let's just talk about some numbers here right now. $117 billion would have made this one of the largest acquisitions in history to take place. Now, we don't normally talk about the media on this podcast, and most of the people who are not in North America don't have the unfortunate pleasure of knowing what happens in North America for media companies. Mm-hmm. There are about 5 or 6 companies in the United States, very large companies, that own practically every TV channel, practically every movie studio, practically every newspaper, practically every news channel, all centered in control of around 5 or 6 very large corporate giant companies.
Yeah, who just happen to own media, but they're started as something else, like General Electric or something.
Precisely.
They don't,
And you can see here in that case the logic for blocking Broadcom's bid to take over Qualcomm. Qualcomm is an American company founded in Silicon Valley, while Broadcom is based out of Singapore. Now, granted, Broadcom is not based out of China. It's not like Foxconn or something like that. So we don't have the immediate worries of the Chinese government in terms of owning such a huge stake in that regard. But still, the question that needs to be asked here is, what would have happened if this sale would have been allowed to go through? There certainly would have been less competition in the network chip market, because, like I said, these are 2 companies. They do much the same thing, but at the same time, they're kind of competing against each other, just like AMD and Intel do. This would, in effect, be the similar thing if Intel tried to buy AMD.
Yeah, and anytime you limit competition, I think it's antithetical to what we claim to believe in as good capitalist.
Right.
It's not the way that it's supposed to work.
And the reason you want to do this in this case is because of, as was cited in it, the national security case. You don't want a company that is foreign necessarily taking over one of the American giants in digital manufacturing that still exists today. Granted, it's Singapore, but still.
It doesn't matter. It's a bad precedent to stand in.
Exactly. It's a bad precedent.
And not all rules are bad. People hear the word like regulations or something. They think they just associate it as bad. No, a regulation is just a law. You have to have rules of the road. Right. Someone needed to stop this deal because it would have been bad for us. Now, don't give Trump too much credit. He probably heard that Obama was going to sign the deal, and that's probably why he said this deal. No. Well, I'm just saying, there's no altruistic, motivations here. It's probably something very simplistic. Either way, we need more competition, and this was just the wrong direction.
That is sometimes the government's stance on this. But at the same time, we also need to be careful that the government doesn't go too far on this, or you end up in a situation like Venezuela, where they prevent the control of individual corporations by civilians, and they do not let civilians have market control over this. So there is a fine line to walk, and I think it's being walked here. And I'll just tell...
Yeah.
And I just want to tell another story with this here. There is a chain of retirement homes in the lower mainland of British Columbia, the Vancouver area. And it was reported not too long ago that a Chinese investment company that has ties, that is effectively a crown corporation of the Chinese government, owns one of the largest retirement home chains in Canada now. And this wasn't reported at all in the media. and our government here did not do anything to stop it. So as you can see, there are cases where things like this need to be moved in on and prevented from happening in order to ensure that competition still exists and that the national interest is preserved. And I think when you have a large company like Qualcomm and you risk that being bought up by another large company that is not based in North America, I think that says something. And I think we, not because companies from different countries are bad or anything, but this is a company that kicked off the boom in Silicon Valley. It should be allowed to exist on its own.
Well, and this is a mistake that people make all the time. A company isn't bad or good. They are machines that we have created with one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to maximize profit at any cost. It doesn't think. It doesn't have a conscience. It's not people. Sorry, Romney. It's a machine that we have created. And why wouldn't you want a foreign company to control your retirement homes? Well, that seems pretty obvious to me. I mean, or like in like over here, there's been instances where certain countries have bought up, certain uranium rights, which probably not a good idea. At the end of the day, countries need to protect their own strategic resources that are essential.
Definitely.
And in another respect, there should be, if you want to make sneakers, well, hell yeah, I 100% your ability to make a better sneaker, put it out there. You should make as much money as possible. But when it comes to like medicine or something like that, no, the profit motive doesn't necessarily work. It shouldn't necessarily be there. Just the same way as, in this circumstance, if you're dealing with like Bluetooth and you're dealing with radio technology, I mean, that's
or cellular modems, which everyone has. That's a very key part of modern life.
Yes. And so like, we just have to be smart about how we do things. There is a place and a time and everything fits. You just have to be balanced and realistic about things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not opposed to for people to be rich and make money. Do it. Do whatever. But there are certain things that you shouldn't, that shouldn't be in the same respect. And don't ever make the mistake that you think a company is a great company or a bad company. They're not. They don't have a conscience. They just are.
They just care about the balance sheet at the end of the day, as they should.
Yeah. They are what they are. They are what we created.
Yeah. I just want to say one more thing on this and, why it's important. It's important not only for Qualcomm, but it's also important for smaller companies that Apple might be looking at purchasing, that Google might be looking at purchasing, or perhaps even bigger, that Amazon and Facebook might be looking at purchasing as well. Now, granted, that would be, those would potentially be companies that are based inside the United States still, but still, it cites an issue of companies becoming too big and limiting competition. And we've talked a lot on this podcast about how Amazon and Facebook are in danger of becoming monopolies, and probably are by some definition of it at this point. Google has kind of staved that perception off a bit by splitting off the various companies into Alphabet and whatnot. So there's that. But that's why this is also important going forward.
It is, because everywhere you look, there is more and more consolidation. There's more and more consolidation at the top, and we have to be careful of that. And Amazon it's scary at this point.
Yep,
I mean,
just
it's scary at this point.
Right? Last week.
About Big Brother, Big Sister, actually. Watch out.
All right. Our final piece of tech news pertains to Google, and Google is now banning all advertising related to cryptocurrency. So we'll no longer allow ads about cryptocurrency-related content, including initial coin offerings, wallets, or trading advice across any of its ad platforms. And this is something that Facebook did similarly earlier in the year. Now, you might be wondering, what is a cryptocurrency? Well, put it simply, a cryptocurrency is something like Bitcoin, and the idea behind Bitcoin is that you have, in effect, cash that is available to you on the internet. It is completely untraceable. It is completely digital, and it is mined by computing what are called hashes, which are very cryptographically intense mathematical equations that computers need to break down. And if you successfully break down one of these hashes, you are guaranteed to get part of a Bitcoin, and that's how people make money with Bitcoins. Now, when Bitcoin first came out, it was thought that it would become a currency online and be used much like cash is in the real world. But numerous companies adopted Bitcoin for their currencies, and as the value of Bitcoin has intended to creep up over time, the service fees for Bitcoin have gone up as well, and that's allowed a number of companies like Steam, for example, to stop using Bitcoin because the service fees were just too high. And this has, in many ways, resulted in Bitcoin becoming a pure investment rather than an actual currency at this point in time. And that's why Google has probably decided to stop allowing ads relating to cryptocurrency on their advertising platform. And I think that makes sense because, kind of like what we were talking about in the Broadcom and Qualcomm story, you are, in effect, talking about money that doesn't exist, that people are making money over. And when you think about it, these things can be kind of orchestrated in this day and age as a get-rich-quick kind of scheme. And Google doesn't want those kind of things floating around on their ad platform.
And that's just and that's in the best light. And I compare it to, if you want to make it as legitimate as you possibly could, and you could make the argument that Google isn't advertising anyone else's currency on there. But if you look at it in what I would call maybe a more realistic light, is that, let's face the facts, Bitcoin was used so that people could be buying and selling nefarious things online, and it's untraceable.
Yeah, that's how it ended up being used.
Yeah.
The initial design of it was for it to be positive, but that's where it's just ended up.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like there's a definite bubble going on with it, and you can see that even main Wall Street companies have been trying to get in on this once the price started spiking. But I just beware of crypto. It's not this end-all, be-all, get-rich immediately thing. And so I'm glad Google has decided not to be advertising that, because I think a lot of people hear it and they hear the buzz and they want to get in on it, and they got that, that fear of being left out thing, and they're going to lose their money.
Yeah, when it first came onto the scene, I said it needs to be regulated by a central authority, just like any fiat currency is. And, people who were integral to the point of what Bitcoin is disagreed with me on that. But here we are proving that, because what other fiat currency is traded as an investment right now?
Yeah.
So
exactly. I mean, there are currency traders out there, but that's the whole.
But they're not. But
thing.
One of them is not worth however many tens of thousands it's worth at this time. Let's just check what one Bitcoin is in American dollars right now. Oh, it's okay. Only 8,500. That's way down.
But it was
way
just
down from its high.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like what, 3 weeks ago when it was topping like 12.
Yep.
The
highest was
volatile.
around 20 grand. So
yeah, Jesus.
And you can see why from that. So, anyways, that's it for tech news this week. Definitely hard hitting all around. In our summoning skill of the month update, people are still burnt out from Double XP weekend. No real changes since last week, except Sorensen57 has made a blip and has since gained 29,000 experience. Everyone else is relatively flat since this time last week.
Don't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, after double XP weekend and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
it was a rough school of the month to come right after.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what's not rough is we're going to move into some achievements of the week right now. So First up this week, we had Roll-A-Dude 540 with 99 Divination on March 15th. VSS with 99 Hunter on the 13th of March. The Firewatch with 99 Construction on March 12th. The Pack with 99 Farming on the 11th. The Firewatch again on the 11th with 99 Attack and 99 Agility. XGN 0 with 99 Invention. Delandra EST with 99 Dungeoneering on March 10th, 2018.
All right. And on March 10th, we also have Silver Wiz 9 with 99 Farming. Woo. Delandra EST with 99 Farming, also on the 10th. Daydreamer with 99 Crafting on March 9th. Wiley with 90. Wiley. There we go. That makes more sense, doesn't it? Wiley with 99 Strength on March 9th. The Firewatch with 99 Strength on March 9th. And Wiley with 99 Attack on March 9th. And let's see here. Antivistic.
Yep.
With 99 Prayer on March 8th. So, good job, everybody. Well, that's nice.
Nicely done.
Nice
all
achievements.
Around. Yeah. I like the 299 farmings there, and Silver was 9. That's Paul. I've been hounding him ever since farming came out to pick that skill up. It's about time he got 99 in that. So.
I love seeing every week that I see some of the same names, and I see them. It's like they're marching on to their max capes. Like I see it just week by week. Another 99, another 99. It's like nice, like that.
And as long as we keep finding new people, we will keep getting to that point.
That's right.
All right, I believe you have a pick of the week for us.
I do. This is kind of different as things go. A lot of times we'll pick games or apps, just different things like that. But I'm going to go kind of take it back to like a timeless type of thing. Rock it old school before we had all this fancy stuff. And I actually went to the theater last night and saw Les Miserables. Wow. I'm not like a musical person. I'm not a theater person, but this was amazing. If you have a chance to see it, go check it out, because like I said, I'm not like a theater person, but this was awesome story. It's really good. It's just really, really good. And you can take a date, try to impress them like you're cultured, It's like like you like the finer
based on
things,
a French novel first published in 1862.
Yeah. It's really good.
And it's a music. Is it pure theater or is it a musical?
It's a musical. They sing the whole time, but it's it's so good, man. It's just it takes place during like the French Revolution.
Right.
That's the time period we're talking about.
A very interesting time period.
So good. Yeah, it's really interesting. And there's so many, like, it's so rich, like the characters, there's a lot of like really cool characters, and yeah, I highly recommend it.
All right, so that's Les Miserables. Okay. Well, what have you been up to this week on RS?
Man, been doing my two favorite things as of late, which has been gathering energy and making charge packs and fishing. I just can't get enough of this fishing. Like, so I've been doing that all week. Oh, I have snuck a few Slayer assignments in here and there just to keep that going. But yeah, I've really been focusing on the fishing and doing my charge packs. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
So how about you, Shane?
Well, I did pick up along the way a couple of clue scrolls, and I didn't know this was possible, but apparently hard clue scrolls can drop master clue scrolls as one of their rewards.
Oh, I did not know that either. Huh.
Yeah. So there's that.
Okay.
So I did a bunch of clue scrolls this week. But in addition to that, I actually did some fishing as well for the sailfish and whatnot because, I had a collection of these spices available in ports, and I thought, why not? I mean, those are still going for around $14K each per soup, and I mean,
wow,
you can't pass that up, right?
No, you definitely can't.
I mean, at this point, you might as well, take whatever money you can get when you're making this, and just fish along the way. And I mean, it's a nice kind of AFK thing to do as well. And I mean, it's not great XP in terms of sailfish, but still, it's there. So, but in addition to that, just clue scrolls and that. And I guess we can also use this as a platform to announce this. Is that this past Sunday, I was also made in Clan Quest to be Clan Quest's newest clan counselor, which is the top rank in Clan Quest. So for those of you guys aware of that,
congratulations.
I guess that means I can't do anything wrong at this point in time. And if you guys ever need anything, you guys who are listening here, who are part of Clan Quest, well, you can come to me and I can answer any questions that you have about our organization and whatnot. So that happened as well. And
nice.
I am very happy to be able to push forward in this role and continue offering what I have been offering to Clan Quest, largely in terms of the website. Because over the past year and a bit, we have undergone a major transformation. We've gone from an old website to a brand new website and forum skin. And we have also unveiled a clan wiki as well that members have access to. So when I say to join Clan Quest to people on the podcast, you are not just joining a RuneScape clan, you are joining an organization that also has an online presence. So keep that in mind if you are ever looking for a clan, that you get more than just the in-game RuneScape clan. You get a lot more than that. You get Discord and whatnot and access to the website and all that other fun stuff. So
very
that
cool,
happened
man.
as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Very cool. Looks like Shane's leading the Federation now, right?
Maybe. Anyways, with that being said, we'll see you guys next week for RSBANDB update, which will probably be Pieces of Hate, I think, based on the way the release schedule shook out. It might not be. We'll just have to wait and see, but Pieces of Hate might indeed be next week. If you guys want to chat with us in the meantime, you can find us in-game at Friends Chat BitsBytes, and we'll see you next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update.
All right, take care.